Since childhood, I was raised by the Wilson family to be their daughter-in-law. At 20, I married Boyce. At 22, I gave birth to my son Charlie. Charlie resembles Boyce, always taciturn, never initiating closeness with me. Last night, he took the initiative to talk to me for the first time. Mom, Leslie is sick and dying. Her wish is to marry Dad. Could you divorce him, please? At that moment, I lost all hope for both this father and son. Fine, let's divorce. I'll grant them their wish. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. During breakfast, I took the initiative to hand the divorce papers to Boyce, showing my sincerity. I thought about my son's words all night. Since he likes Leslie so much, I agree to the divorce. At the same time, I'll give up custody of Charlie and leave with nothing. Put all the marital assets under our son's name, consider it his child support. Boyce set down his coffee and frowned. Were you just talking to me? I watched the Bluetooth earpiece still flashing on his ear, realizing he hadn't heard a single word of what I just said. A profound sense of helplessness welled up inside me every time I spoke to him. This was the kind of disregard I received. For instance, every night when he came home recently, he carried the lingering scent of another woman's perfume. I couldn't help but ask, "Who have you been seeing lately?" Boyce merely said indifferently, "A friend." He didn't even glance at me. I truly wonder if, after 5 years of marriage, he might not even know his wife's name is Marion Clifford. I've truly had enough of this suffocating life. I flipped straight to the last page of the divorce agreement and handed it to him. Sign it. It won't take more than a few minutes of your time. Boyce frowned and glanced at me, about to flip through it when our son came running over. Dad, are you going to play golf with Leslie later? I want to come too. As Boyce stood up, I grabbed his wrist firmly. Sign it. Boyce finally turned to look at me, a hint of surprise in his eyes. I suppose he's unaccustomed to seeing the usually docile me suddenly become assertive. Our son urged, "Hurry up, Dad. If you make Leslie wait too long, she'll get angry and punish you by making you carry her again." Okay. The next second, Boyce signed without even glancing at the contents. Father and son soon walked away. I couldn't tell whether Boyce signed without reading because he trusted me or simply ignored me. Holding the pen, I wrote my name right beside Boyce's signature. In this lifetime, my name appeared alongside Boyce's for the first time on our marriage certificate, and the second time is right here. After signing, a teardrop fell onto the page. I gently wiped it clean and mailed the divorce papers to the lawyer I'd contacted earlier. Then I went upstairs to pack. When I opened the wardrobe, I realized not a single piece of clothing hanging there was something I actually liked. Because no one knew the me before 16, the one who loved bungee jumping, speeding cars, and laughing with unbridled joy. But ever since I married Boyce, I was taught propriety, to be gentle, demure, and to smile without showing teeth, because what the Wilson family needed was merely a proper Mrs. Wilson. Yet even after sacrificing my true self, I received no recognition, only the mockery of Boyce's friends. They say I'm a fake, that Leslie and Boyce are better matched. Thinking of this while staring at these clothes belonging to Mrs. Wilson, I suddenly felt an indescribable nausea rise within me. I couldn't help but rush to the bathroom to vomit. After vomiting, I lifted my face and looked at my perfectly made-up reflection in the mirror. I suddenly realized that getting divorced was absolutely the right decision. I refused to be suffocated to death in this prison called Mrs. Wilson. I want to break free from this cage and be my true self. In the end, I dug out a dress from before my marriage and called my best friend to come take me away. The Wilson household is not my home. As for the Clifford family, they stopped caring about me after marrying me off to Boyce. That's not my home either. My best friend soon arrived at the door, but her face was full of confusion. How do you have time to meet me? It's your birthday today. Didn't you say a week ago that you'd celebrate with your husband and son? I froze, pulling out my phone to check the chat history. Only then did I realize I had indeed booked a birthday restaurant a week ago, and had even sent Boyce a date invitation message. To this moment, he still hasn't replied to me. Feeling lost, perhaps I would have in the past, but now I'm numb to it. I got in the car and arrived at the birthday restaurant with my best friend. But when we entered and gave our birthday reservation number, the manager awkwardly refunded me. "Madam, the restaurant has been reserved today by Mr. Boyce for a private event. He and the young master are celebrating Mrs. Wilson's birthday. We'll refund double the amount of your reservation deposit." My best friend laughed as she pulled me forward. "No need for a refund. The Mrs. Wilson you're looking at is right here in front of you." But as we approached the center of the hall, the cheerful laughter of a family of 3 echoed from not far away. We saw Boyce bringing Charlie to deliver birthday wishes to Leslie. Boyce said, "Wishing you peace and smooth sailing." Charlie said, "May all Leslie's wishes come true, to marry Daddy and become my mommy." I watched as the three of them happily took their seats after delivering the birthday wishes. His gaze never left Boyce as he kept looking at Leslie. He also watched as his son Charlie considerately pulled out a chair for Leslie, poured her tea, and helped tie up her hair. After 5 years of marriage, Boyce still doesn't even know which day is my birthday, let alone send any wishes. The child I carried for 10 months and nearly lost my life bringing into this world has never even poured me a glass of water. My best friend couldn't stand it anymore and was about to rush forward to demand justice for me, but I held her back. I just said, "No need. I've already signed divorce papers with Boyce." My friend immediately took me to her place. I didn't cry, but she did. She hugged me, cursing Boyce as a dog of a man, and calling Charlie an ungrateful wretch. "For 5 years, you've spent nearly every waking hour revolving around that father-son pair, no job, no social life. When I finally managed to get you out shopping, Boyce would call, and you'd rush home grinning like a child to make him hangover soup. Your son cried non-stop during weaning, and you stayed up night after night soothing him, after pouring your heart and soul only to face betrayal. Marion, I know you must be hurting right now. If you need to cry, just let it out." Listening to my best friend's rambling, I tilted my head back and took a swig of beer, leaning against the sofa. "Cry, right now. I can't shed a tear, but I have cried many times before, when Boyce's mom forced me to learn etiquette, and Boyce ignored my complaints, when I waited for Boyce until midnight in the snow, and he didn't come home or tell me. Charlie had a fever in the middle of the night, and when I called Boyce, he hung up on me. I once naively hoped for a loving marriage and a harmonious family, but they never truly saw me. After 5 years, I should have woken up long ago, after a drunken stupor. I fell into a deep slumber. Early the next morning, I suddenly received a call from Boyce. He seemed to have just woken up, his voice hoarse. "Where did I put the watch I usually wear on Mondays?" I blurted out, "In the first drawer of the walk-in closet." "What about the matching cufflinks?" "In the drawer beneath the watch." Only after this exchange did it dawn on me we were about to get divorced. From now on, I wouldn't need to wake up early every morning to Boyce's outfit ready. Nor would I need to wait until midnight for his return, serving him a bowl of stomach-nourishing porridge at just the right temperature. Boyce didn't seem to notice that I had left our marital villa. I kindly reminded him, "Have the housekeeper reorganize your walk-in closet for you. You can ask them whenever you need to find something in the future. We're getting divorced soon. It wouldn't be appropriate for you to call me asking where things are." After I finished speaking, I heard Boyce respond with a faint hum. The sound of a drawer being pulled open came through the phone. I thought everything that needed to be said had been said and was about to hang up when I heard Boyce issue another instruction. "For the next few days at noon, prepare seafood congee and deliver it to the CEO's office at Wilson's residence." With that, he hung up the phone. It seems he didn't take in a single word of what I said about divorce. Who could possibly understand? This feeling is like screaming your lungs out, yet he doesn't hear a single ripple. I took a deep breath, my fingertips trembling with anger. Without a second thought, I blocked Boyce. After some consideration, I also blocked the number of Charlie's kindergarten teacher, but I forgot to block Boyce's mom. So when I finally woke up well rested and went out for lunch, she stopped me by the car. She flung a stack of photos in my face, all of which were intimate pictures of Boyce and Leslie. "You've disappointed me so much. I've been mentoring you with my own hands since you were 16, Marion. 10 years have passed, and you still can't keep your husband's heart. If I'd known you'd be so useless, I shouldn't have looked down on Leslie for being an illegitimate daughter and should have chosen her as Boyce's wife instead." The sharp corner of the photo left a bleeding scratch on my neck. When I was chosen by the Wilson family to become the future Mrs. Wilson, many envied my good fortune, but from the age of 16, I lost all freedom, living only to become Mrs. Wilson. Crushed under the weight, I deliberately rebelled with an early romance during senior year, forcing the matter before Boyce, thinking he'd call off the engagement, but he said nothing, and my father sent me to a women's virtue school overnight. Though I've only been married to Boyce for 5 years, I've been controlled for 10. I've had enough. I directly told Boyce's mom. "I've already signed divorce papers with Boyce. I didn't ask for custody. I left with nothing. If you're not satisfied with me, you can find a more suitable daughter-in-law." With that, I opened the car door and got out. Boyce's mom froze for a second before grabbing my wrist in a furious rage. "Marion, how dare you?" Boyce's mom, her crimson-sharpened nails dug into my flesh, stinging like needles. I turned slowly, yet smiled. "There's nothing I wouldn't dare." The title Mrs. Wilson was never my pride. I pulled up my sleeve, revealing for the first time to an outsider the array of old scars lining my wrist. Boyce's mom recoiled in shock upon seeing the scar twisted like a centipede, her hands involuntarily loosening their grip, yet I smiled faintly, tracing the crisscrossing scars on my wrist with my fingertips. I never wanted to be Mrs. Wilson. Whenever I couldn't break free, I'd slash my skin with all my might. Do you know what I've been screaming in my dreams every night for the past 10 years? I looked up at Boyce's mom, whose face was dark with anger, and said word by word, I am calling out, is there anyone who can save me? But now I understand that the only one who can save me is myself. Only when I freely be myself can I truly live. Having spoken calmly, I finally opened the car door and stepped out. This time, Boyce's mom didn't stop me again. But the suffocating frustration in my heart couldn't be suppressed. I had to let it out. I took out the long dust-covered bright red supercar, stepped on the gas, and sped out the door. But Boyce must be my jinx. The moment I rushed through the intersection, I crashed head-on into a Maybach, license plate 88888. It's Boyce's car. Someone quickly got out of the opposite car. It was Boyce's assistant. I rolled down my car window, and the assistant froze for a moment when he saw me, Mrs. Wilson. I wasn't surprised by his astonishment. After 5 years of marriage, Boyce's circle had long formed a stereotype about me, gentle, demure, stagnant as still water. For someone like that to be speeding inevitably seemed odd. I didn't explain anything, just handed over a business card and said, for any compensation needed, please contact the insurance manager. With that, I put on my sunglasses, stepped on the gas, and drove away. The assistant quickly returned to the Maybach and informed Boyce. Mr. Boyce, the driver in the other car was Mrs. Wilson. Boyce pinched the bridge of his nose and issued only a cold command, let's go. It seemed to make no difference to him whether the person driving the opposite car was his wife or a complete stranger. The assistant wisely refrained from further questions, but no one expected the couple to cross paths again just 3 hours later. At that time, Boyce had come to the suburban racetrack after signing a land development agreement with a business partner. A racing competition was being held there. A red sports car claimed first place with an absolutely hormone-charged performance. The racer stepped out of the car, clad in a deep red form-fitting racing suit, tall, with curves both voluptuously sensual and elegantly poised, so eye-catching that it's hard to look away. Even Boyce clearly showed amazement and admiration. Until the racer removed the helmet, revealing their face, the assistant gasped repeatedly in astonishment. Mr. Boyce, who knew Mrs. Wilson was this skilled at racing. Boyce remained silent, merely furrowing his brows slightly as he noticed the fervent gazes of the surrounding men fixed on that flash of crimson. When I noticed Boyce's gaze, I didn't look up to greet him. All these years, except at those high society banquets where decorum demanded otherwise, whenever we crossed paths, he usually pretended not to know me. So when the out-of-town racing event organizer introduced me to Boyce, I also acted as though we were strangers, politely saying, Mr. Boyce, I've long heard of your great name. Boyce remained expressionless, creating an awkward atmosphere, until Leslie's voice came through. Boyce, are you done yet? Let's go back to the company for lunch when you're finished. I'm craving the seafood congee your housekeeper makes. I turned my head and saw Leslie stepping out of a Maybach, walking over to casually loop her arm through Boyce's as if no one else existed. Leslie probably didn't consider me worthy of being her love rival. She even smiled at me. After they walked away, someone sighed. Mr. Boyce even brings Mrs. Wilson along for work meetings. Their relationship is so strong. Boyce's assistant hadn't left yet and gave me a strange look upon hearing this. I suppose he must have been thinking, how could there be such an incompetent woman? I said nothing and left the racetrack. Then I immediately called my lawyer to ask how soon I could get the divorce certificate. The lawyer told me I'd have to wait 7 days. Just 7 more days. It's all right. I've endured 10 years already. What's another 7 days of waiting? But just as I'd calmed myself, I received a call from Boyce's assistant, Mrs. Wilson. The CEO is asking when you'll be delivering the seafood congee. Also, Charlie's teacher said your phone was unreachable. The little master's craft homework wasn't delivered. Would you be able to take it over? I remembered Charlie asking me to divorce his father while I was meticulously working on his craft homework through a phone video call. Before I left home, that craft project was only half finished. Gazing at the carefree clouds in the sky, I calmly said, tell Boyce the seafood congee is no longer available. I won't send anything in the future either. And one more thing, Charlie's affairs are no longer my concern. Don't come looking for me again. With that, I blocked my assistant's number as well. Meanwhile, at Wilson Family Group, the assistant stood holding his phone, face full of embarrassment. President, Mrs. Wilson hung up on me when I tried calling back. The line was dead. It seems she's blocked me. Perhaps you could try reaching out. Boyce frowned, reluctantly pulling out his phone. He scrolled to the contact saved as wife and sent a message. What's this nonsense about? The next second, a red deletion notification popped up in the dialog box. The other party has enabled friend verification. You are not yet their friend. The assistant saw Boyce's chat history on the phone screen. The earliest message was already from a week ago. He was surprised. I didn't expect Mrs. Wilson's birthday to be the same day as Miss Leslie's. Then yesterday was also Mrs. Wilson's birthday. Didn't you send her a gift, President? Boyce paused for a second. Didn't notice. The assistant wasn't surprised by this answer. After all, there was a long string of chat messages on the phone, yet not a single reply from Boyce. Then, they heard Boyce instruct, "Get her a belated birthday gift. You decide what to pick." Understood, President. Before the assistant could even take out his phone to choose a gift, he saw Boyce already engrossed in reviewing documents. He sighed and quietly left the office to quickly pick out a gift. In the evening, I received Boyce's assistant-delivered birthday gift, which quite surprised me. But I refused it. I had no idea what Boyce was trying to convey. My birthday had already passed. What did I need a gift for? What's more, my birthday wish for the past 10 years has only been one: freedom. Boyce divorcing me was, in a way, an unexpected fulfillment of that wish. I thought that during these 7 days waiting for the divorce papers, Boyce and I would have no further contact. But after the assistant who delivered the gift left, I received another message from Boyce's mom, Marion. "I won't interfere with your divorce from Boyce, but before you divorce, my grandson must not be affected in any way." Charlie couldn't possibly be affected. In fact, he was the one who actively encouraged me to divorce his father. Before I could reply, Boyce's mom sent a barrage of text messages one after another. "Marion, if you don't want this to affect the divorce, you must come to the old house this weekend as usual to accompany my grandson." Boyce didn't like crowds. So after marriage we moved out of the Wilson family's old estate and into our marital villa. After giving birth to Charlie, we made it a routine to take our child to the old house every other weekend. Today happens to be Friday. Normally on this day, I would pick up Charlie from kindergarten and bring him back to the old house. Boyce is extremely busy, usually not coming home before 10 o'clock. This time, I went straight back to the old house. I didn't expect that when I arrived, Boyce had already come home too. I completely ignored him and headed straight for the second floor. Boyce blocked my way and inexplicably asked, "Did you like the birthday gift?" I looked at him in confusion. Could he really not know I'd refused the gift? But this wasn't surprising. He treated me like air. So why would he remember whether I'd received gifts or not? I didn't want to talk to him, so I just gave a perfunctory nod. Yet unexpectedly, I then heard him issue an order. "Charlie is carving a peace plaque for Leslie. Go upstairs and help him finish it." What? There are additional conditions attached to receiving that birthday gift. I let out a cold laugh, deliberately bumped into Boyce, and went upstairs without a word. Boyce frowned but didn't say anything. When I reached the second floor, Charlie was sitting at the desk, holding a carving knife and sculpting with great concentration. As I approached, I noticed he had already placed a carved peace plaque in front of him, meticulously replicating it step by step. Perhaps my footsteps disturbed Charlie, as he looked up at me. But the next moment, he swiftly grabbed the already carved peace plaque from the table, pursed his lips, and said to me with displeasure, "Mom, this peace plaque was carved by Dad for Leslie. You can't steal it." My heart ached as if being sliced by a knife. I truly couldn't let it go. The child I once treasured more than life itself now regarded me as a thief. Staring at Charlie and Boyce's nearly identical faces, I suddenly found it hard to suppress my suffocating emotions. "There's no need to guard against me like this. I've never wanted what belongs to others, and your father and I are getting divorced soon. Before long, your Leslie will be your new mother." As the words fell, a cold reprimand from Boyce suddenly came from behind. "Marion, how can you be a proper mother when you talk nonsense like that to the child?" This was probably the longest sentence Boyce had ever spoken to me. I turned around, gazed at Boyce's indifferent face, and smiled faintly. "Yes, I'm not qualified. Then find him a qualified mother yourself." With that, I turned and walked toward the door. "Marion." Boyce gripped my hand, his deep voice laced with warning. But at that moment, Charlie's smartwatch rang, and he urged cheerfully, "Dad, it's Leslie video calling." The next second, Boyce let go of me. I watched him walk over to answer the call, his previously icy expression now replaced with a smile. I suddenly felt utterly bored and, without saying a word, returned to the guest bedroom, closing and locking the door behind me. The room was freezing. Though it was June, I felt as if I were lying in a coffin, buried in the cool earth. I closed my eyes and tried to lull myself to sleep, for no reason. I dreamed of my 16-year-old self. I held the puppy that had been thrown to its death, crying helplessly and despairingly. Because Boyce is allergic to fur, Mrs. Wilson couldn't keep a dog. I dreamed again of my 19-year-old self, sent by my father to a female virtue school. I was the top student in my grade, clearly admitted to Peking University, yet locked in an iron cage-like women's morality school, learning how to serve husbands and raise children. They were all crying as they told me, "Marion, move forward, don't look back." I won't look back again. From the moment I handed Boyce the divorce papers, I was already prepared to fight to the death. If the rest of my life is to be lived like a caged bird, I'd rather die. That night's dreams were chaotic, but my biological clock still woke me at 5 the next morning. At this hour before, I had to get up to prepare breakfast for Boyce and his father, heating a cup of milk, rubbing my temples. I thought of Boyce's mom's threats and still got up to go downstairs. Only after going downstairs did I realize Charlie had left early with Boyce. They said they had a sunrise viewing appointment with Leslie. I found it rather ridiculous anyone could see Charlie didn't need a mother like me at all. Boyce's mom insisted I return to the old house nonetheless. In the Wilson family, I've never truly been treated as Mrs. Wilson, yet ironically, whether needed or not, I must appear wherever Mrs. Wilson is supposed to be, even if just as a decorative vase. After surviving this weekend, my best friend immediately invited me to check out the college guys at the sports school, saying she'd help me blow off some steam. The 18-year-old college boy was quite skilled at sweet-talking, calling me sister in the sweetest tone, showering me with emotional comfort. After spending a few days at the sports school, my mood had indeed improved a lot. Even my best friend was reluctant to leave the school. "So, now that you've experienced the charm of younger guys, don't you think Boyce, that old man, isn't worth loving anymore?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, I don't love him anymore." Seeing my cooperation, my best friend grew even more enthusiastic. "That's the spirit. Honestly, you should have divorced him ages ago. Among all the younger guys we know, who wouldn't treat you better than that cold-hearted Boyce? When the time comes, just pick a young and considerate younger brother to settle down with. Won't that be absolutely delightful?" I was just about to laugh and agree when a cough sounded behind me. I turned my head and saw Boyce and his assistant standing not far away. The assistant looked at me nervously, while Boyce stood backlit, making his expression unreadable. But towards me, he probably never shows any expression. I pretended not to see him and tried to leave with my best friend. I thought Boyce wouldn't care about this little episode either. Yet unexpectedly, he stepped forward and grabbed me. "There's a gathering you need to attend. Come with me." Without giving me a chance to refuse, he pulled me straight into the car. Once inside, I was completely dazed. In my memory, Boyce had always treated me like air, showing neither emotion nor opinion toward me. I had only ever seen this domineering side of him in bed before. Just as I regained my composure, he suddenly spoke again. "Marion, in a family like ours, compatibility matters most." I froze for a moment before realizing he was countering what my best friend and I had said. "So love doesn't matter, and whether you cherish me doesn't matter either." I laughed in anger, my face turning cold toward him for the first time. "But your idea of suitability means my compromise." "But Boyce, why should I?" Boyce stared at me for several seconds without speaking. I didn't want to bother guessing his mood anymore, so I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. It wasn't until we arrived at the gathering venue that I realized this was just Boyce's small get-together with friends. He had never taken me to such occasions before. I actually don't really like his friends, since they look down on me and keep calling me a fake, so I didn't smile the whole time, just drank along with them. Later, when I got a bit drunk, I got up and went to the restroom. After I left, Boyce chatted with his friends. Someone couldn't wait to ask, "Boyce, your wife not only didn't smile today but actually gave you attitude." "Yeah, rumors are spreading that you're getting divorced." "Seems it's true." Boyce frowned. "Who said I'm getting divorced? Since I'm married, my wife can only be Marion in this lifetime." "Are you serious?" the friend asked in surprise. Boyce glanced at them but said nothing. The friend looked utterly baffled, struggling for words for a long moment. "Boyce, do you remember President George? The one who collaborated with you on that AI intelligence development project? He's just like you, used to ignore his wife. Wouldn't even let her visit the company. Nobody knew she was Mrs. George, in the end, his wife became completely disillusioned and divorced him. Heard he still hasn't won her back to this day. If you're planning to spend your life with Marion, then as your bro, I'm advising you to show her more care, otherwise. Watch out or your wife might follow old George's wife's example and divorce you too. Boyce paused the hand that was swirling the wine glass, yet he said coldly and with certainty, she won't. Meanwhile, in the restroom, I happened to receive a text message from the divorce lawyer, Marion. The divorce certificate between you and Mr. Boyce has been processed as entrusted. You may come to the law firm to collect it at any time. The day had finally come. I couldn't wait any longer and took a taxi to the law firm to obtain the long-awaited divorce certificate. I opened the divorce certificate and read it over and over again. From this moment on, I no longer have to treat Boyce's words as divine decrees, nor live under the scrutinizing gaze of the Wilson family. No more enduring tasteless boiled vegetables every day to maintain Mrs. Wilson's elegance. No more applying the same rigid makeup daily, smiling through social engagements. Uttering lies about how happy I am. I can go bungee jumping, race cars, travel the world. I have so many things I can do now. After leaving the law firm, my best friend said that to celebrate my freedom, the first thing we should do was eat a meal Mrs. Wilson would absolutely never allow. Then, she took me to a food stall at the night market. Milk tea, barbecue, ice cream, eat whatever you want, breathing in the swirling aromas of cooked dishes and meat. I finally understood the meaning of being alive. That night, we grilled skewers, drank beer, danced by the roadside, and laughed loudly without restraint. In the end, I laughed until tears streamed down my face. The shackles that had weighed on me for 10 years finally melted away. Perhaps the suppression had lasted too long. The pain and resentment in my heart desperately needed release. Fueled by alcohol, I removed my son Charlie from the blacklist and dialed his number. As soon as the call connected, I spoke with reddened eyes. Charlie, let me tell you something. Even if you don't like me, I'm still your birth mother. I was the one who nearly died in the delivery room giving birth to you, and I was the one who cared for you day and night when you were sick with fever. From the moment you called me vicious for defending Leslie, an outsider, I stopped being your mother. Don't call me mom anymore, you don't deserve to. Marion, what are you saying? Boyce's icy voice came through the receiver. I froze for a moment before realizing the child might be with him, and immediately sneered, Mr. Boyce, instead of wasting time lecturing me, you'd better discipline your own son properly. You know what, the night before my birthday, your son told me to divorce you to make room for Leslie. The funniest part, that was the longest sentence he'd ever spoken to me. Boyce, congratulations, I'm granting everyone's wish. With that, I blocked Charlie again. After a drunken night out with my best friend, I booked an international flight early the next morning. I knew perfectly well that I'd gone too far yesterday, and once news of the divorce got out, the Cliffords would never let me off the hook. They might even force me to kneel and beg Boyce to take me back. Or perhaps they'd marry me off to someone else, selling me for the right price. I want to escape the capital city, and I won't be coming back. After saying goodbye to my best friend, I packed my bags lightly and walked out the door. Unexpectedly, when I reached the entrance, I saw a Maybach parked not far away. Boyce stepped out of the car with Charlie and began walking toward me. Charlie, apologize to your mother. Charlie tightened his pale little face, clutching his clothes as he bowed to me. Mom, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have scolded you, nor should I have said those words about you and Dad getting divorced. I know I was wrong. Will you forgive me? I chuckled lightly and simply said, no need to apologize. I'd already vented all I needed to, and there was nothing left to dwell on. But unexpectedly, after I finished speaking, Boyce actually spoke up. Sorry for not teaching Charlie properly. I share the responsibility too. How rare. I never thought I'd live to hear Boyce apologize voluntarily. But can the harm caused be forgiven with just a simple sorry? No. But then I remembered what I had in my bag, something I was originally going to mail to Boyce at the airport. I said directly, Boyce, if you're truly sorry, then drive me to the airport. Boyce looked puzzled. The Wilson family hasn't had any business engagements outside the capital recently. Where are you flying to? I laughed mockingly. So unless it's for the Wilson family's business, I can't have my own affairs. That's not what I meant. Boyce showed a puzzled expression for the first time, but I didn't care. Back then, it was he who escorted me onto the wedding car and delivered me into the cage of the Wilson family. Now, it's only right that he should see me off, personally severing the last ties between us once and for all. Not a word was exchanged all the way to the airport. Before getting out of the car, I handed Boyce an exquisite box, the final gift. Boyce paused for a moment, though puzzled by what final meant. He still reached out to take it. "Thank you." Charlie couldn't help but tilt his little face up and ask, "Mom, where's mine?" I smiled. "Yours is inside too. After all, this was a wonderful gift for both father and son. They ought to be delighted. Remember to open this gift an hour later." By then, the plane should have taken off. Boyce rarely showed me a pleasant expression. He even said to me, "Come back early." I smiled without responding and turned to leave. "I won't be coming back. I'm going to pursue my freedom." Boyce kept watching the slender figure entering the airport, feeling an inexplicable unease in his heart. He held the box and wanted to open it right away. Charlie stopped him. "Dad, we promised Mom we wouldn't open it until an hour later. We have to keep our word." For the next hour, Boyce held the documents but didn't read a single page. "I can't count how many times I've checked the gift box." Finally, the hour is up. Charlie rushed to open the gift box. "Dad, what exactly did Mom get us? Why all the mystery?" With a clatter, the lid was flung open. Boyce turned his head just in time to see. Inside lay only one thing, quietly resting, a divorce certificate. Charlie, though only 3 years old, had already begun his early education. He stared at the divorce certificate in the box, his little mouth mumbling for a long while. Finally, he squeezed out a question. "Daddy, what's a divorce certificate? Didn't Mommy say she was giving us a present? Is this little book the present?" Boyce's mind was buzzing with noise. He threw down the documents and stood up abruptly, his elbow knocking over the coffee cup beside him. The warm coffee spilled onto his hand-tailored suit pants, leaving a dark stain, but he remained oblivious, only taking the box from Charlie's hands. Even he didn't realize how badly his hands were trembling. The silver-embossed red booklet lay quietly inside. Like a presence that had always existed in the household, yet had been deliberately ignored. Somehow, an immense panic suddenly rose in his heart. He couldn't shake the feeling that once this divorce certificate was opened, something would be irrevocably lost. Having navigated the business world for years, if not exactly maintaining composure when Mount Tai collapses before him, Boyce certainly possessed self-control and mental fortitude far beyond ordinary people. But this time, he actually lost his composure, a rare occurrence. His trembling fingertips slowly picked up that little red booklet, taking several deep breaths before opening it. The moment he saw the names, his and Marion, his ink-black pupils dilated abruptly. He could hardly believe his eyes. With a snap, he closed the divorce certificate and was about to call Marion when he realized she might be on a plane at that moment. Frustration and anger surged in his heart, but he suppressed the urge to confront Marion in person and instead called his assistant. "Look into Mrs. Wilson's whereabouts, find out where her flight is headed today, and bring her back to me immediately, and also, find out who processed our divorce certificate." There was no divorce agreement, no court filing. How could the divorce even happen? There was a panic and irritation in his tone that he himself hadn't noticed. He rarely showed his emotions so openly. The assistant across from him was trembling with fear. Since joining the company, he had always been by Boyce's side. When had he ever seen him display such vivid emotions? Even when suppressed by competitors and losing billions in market value, he had never seen Mr. Boyce this furious before. Divorce? Could it be because of that seemingly insignificant Mrs. Wilson? The assistant shook his head, finding it utterly unbelievable, but he didn't show it. Just acknowledged with a sound before going to work, Boyce stood with arms akimbo, pacing back and forth in the vast study, the unease in his heart growing increasingly intense without any sign of subsiding. Finally, he still took out his phone and sent a verification message to Marion, who had long blocked him. "What exactly is going on with the divorce certificate? Yuri, an adult. Why are you playing such pranks? Text me when you land. Both Charlie and I are worried about you." After a long pause, his fingers tapped the screen to type again. "We can sit down and talk about any issues, communicate properly. There's no need for this kind of behavior. You're a mother now, not a child. All the messages have gone unanswered." Boyce slumped into his executive chair, wearily pinching the bridge of his nose. Meanwhile, Charlie, who had been quietly playing with building blocks, suddenly looked up with an innocent expression and asked, "Daddy, does this gift from Mommy mean she wants to divorce you?" Divorce? In the end, his wife became completely disheartened and divorced him. "Hey, I heard he still hasn't won her back. If you're planning to spend your life with Marion, then as your friend, I advise you to show her more care. Otherwise, be careful. Or your wife might end up like old George's wife, threatening divorce too." The words of his friend and son flooded into Boyce's mind. He felt a lump of air stuck in his chest, neither rising nor falling, suffocating him with unease. After a long while, he finally murmured, "Marion, have you also lost hope in me?" The waiting time always felt unbearably long. Has the plane not landed yet? Marion, where on earth have you gone? Boyce had lost count of how many times he'd checked his watch or sent messages, yet from start to finish, there wasn't a single response. An inexplicable wave of grievance welled up in his heart. He and Marion were so perfectly matched. Had gotten along so well for 5 years, how could she suddenly divorce him and leave without a word? Did you know, the night before my birthday, your son told me to divorce you to make way for Leslie. The funny thing is, that was still the longest sentence he ever said to me. Boyce, congratulations, I'm granting everyone's wish. Suddenly recalling Marion's voice from that phone call, Boyce broke out in a cold sweat. Just then, the phone rang. He pressed the answer button without hesitation. Not even glancing at the caller ID. Marion, you finally remember to call me. I've sent you so many messages, why haven't you replied? There was silence on the other end for a few seconds before the voice spoke. Mr. Boyce, it's me. Boyce glanced at his phone screen. The little strength that had just returned to my body dissipated once again. He pinched the bridge of his nose and said in a low voice, sorry, I was too impatient. Any news about Mrs. Wilson? The assistant hesitated for a moment, swallowed hard, and said carefully, well, Mr. Boyce, we found that Mrs. Wilson booked a flight abroad today, but we couldn't track her connecting flight after landing, so, we're not entirely sure which country Madam went to. The assistant's voice grew quieter. Boyce's face was also clouded with gloom. After a long silence, he spoke hoarsely. What about the divorce certificate? Has that been investigated? The assistant across from him nodded. Then suddenly realized Boyce couldn't see it. He quickly added, we've checked. The divorce agreement was signed by you personally. Both the forensics department and legal team have verified the handwriting and content. There are no issues. Long-suppressed fury finally overpowered reason. Boyce spoke with icy menace. What do you mean, no issues? The assistant was momentarily speechless, then slowly explained, Mrs. Wilson didn't claim any of your assets in the divorce settlement, which is practically equivalent to leaving empty-handed. All joint properties under both your names, including Mrs. Wilson's assets and shares, have been entirely allocated to young Master Charlie. They say it's meant to serve as child support that Mrs. Wilson should pay to young Master Charlie. She didn't want your property, and she didn't seek custody of young Master Charlie either. The assistant on the phone was sweating profusely, wiping his forehead with his hand. After all, he had seen the world with Boyce and knew plenty of wealthy family secrets, but he had never seen any rich lady divorce so cleanly and decisively. Others going through divorce would practically skin their ex alive given the chance. Mrs. Wilson, on the other hand, simply walked away without a word. I don't know if she genuinely doesn't care or if she's just too incompetent. As the assistant was lost in thought, Boyce hung up the phone. He clutched his phone. Unable to snap out of it for a long time, he couldn't understand why his marriage, which had seemed perfectly fine to him, had suddenly fallen apart. After a long silence, he let out a heavy sigh, unsure whether he was questioning himself or the air around him. Marion, what exactly are you unhappy about? Just as he was lost in thought, the study door creaked open slightly. Charlie peeked in cautiously, waddling in on his short little legs. He grabbed onto Boyce's leg. His raised eyes brimming with hope. Daddy, I asked Leslie, and Mom giving us the divorce papers means I can have a new mom. Daddy, hurry up and marry Leslie. I want Leslie to be my new mom. In the past, when he heard such words, Boyce would dismiss them as childish innocence. But now, hearing it again, it sounded particularly grating. Could it be Marion really wanted a divorce because of these words from her son? At this thought, he couldn't help but frown and scold. You're only 3 years old, what do you know? Don't ever say such things again. You only have one mother, there's no such thing as a new mom. Charlie was startled by his harsh tone, his little mouth trembling before bursting into loud sobs. I want a new mommy. I want a new mommy. I want Leslie to be my new mommy. I don't want the old mommy. She's just like a nanny all day. She's no good at all. Boyce was furious. He lifted Charlie and gave him a smack on the bottom. Who taught you to say these things? He should have realized earlier, Charlie was just a 3-year-old child. If no one had been whispering these things in his ear, how could he possibly know about divorce or say something like Mom is just a maid? The smack wasn't hard. As if he couldn't take it anymore, Charlie bolted out the door. I hate Dad. If Dad won't get me a new mom, I'm not coming back. Boyce was distraught and wanted to stop him, but the phone rang again. It was Leslie calling. After hesitating for 2 seconds, Boyce chose to answer the phone first rather than stopping Charlie. As soon as the call connected, Leslie's soft voice came through. Boyce, I heard from Charlie that you and Marion are getting divorced. What's going on? Could it just be a child's nonsense? Boyce let out a sigh. There's been a misunderstanding. I'm not divorcing Marion. Was there anything else? Leslie remained silent for a moment before replying dejectedly. No, it's just that we'd agreed to take Charlie to the amusement park to see the fireworks today. When neither of you reached out, I wanted to check in. Boyce wore a look of remorse. Sorry, I completely forgot. We'll go another time. By the time Boyce hung up the phone, Charlie had already disappeared. He didn't think much of it. With so many servants in the villa, how could they fail to keep an eye on a 3-year-old child? Yet Charlie disappeared right under the noses of all these people. No one saw how he left the villa, and even the surveillance cameras outside only captured footage of him walking away alone. Boyce and his men practically turned the entire city of Beijing upside down, but there was no trace of Charlie. He dialed Marion's number over and over, but all he heard from the receiver was the same automated message. Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently switched off. Please try again later. Left with no choice, he had his assistant track down the phone number of Marion's best friend. Hello, this is Boyce. Has Marion been in touch with you? If you have any news of her, I need you to tell her immediately she wants a divorce, and Charlie is missing. If she still has any sense of responsibility as a mother, I hope she'll come back at once. Before he could finish his words, Marion's best friend impatiently interrupted him loudly. Stop, stop, stop. If the child is missing, call the police. What's the use of looking for Marion? Does she have a psychic connection with the child, able to lock onto the target as soon as she returns and teleport straight to that little ingrate? How ridiculous, blaming the child's disappearance on your divorce. She only divorced because you forced her into it. Divorce was the right choice, should have done it sooner. Neither you nor that little ingrate are any good. The phone was hung up with a sharp click, but it immediately started ringing again. It was Leslie. Boyce picked up, but only managed to hear, Boyce, help, someone's trying to kidnap Charlie. Let go. Charlie, don't be afraid. Leslie, look out. The call abruptly ended. Boyce immediately ordered his team to track Leslie's phone signal and rush to the location. When they arrived, Leslie and Charlie had already collapsed on the dirt slope outside the national highway. Leslie was covered in scrapes and cuts, looking utterly disheveled, while Charlie, tightly cradled in her arms, had only a few smudges of dirt on his face and was otherwise completely unharmed. Everyone present was deeply moved by the sight. Boyce clenched his hand hanging at his side, then helped both of them onto the ambulance first, watching the flashing red and blue lights grow increasingly distant. He finally uttered to his assistant beside him, investigate what Leslie has been up to recently, who they've had contact with. Leave no stone unturned. The assistant froze momentarily before quickly regaining composure. He accompanied Mr. Boyce in searching the entire city without finding a trace of young Master Charlie. How could the frail Leslie have managed to locate him? With so many servants in the villa, how could young Master Charlie, a 3-year-old child, have slipped away unnoticed? If it were truly a kidnapping, why didn't the kidnappers demand a ransom and instead abandoned him on the highway? Boyce has been navigating the business world for so many years, how could he not suspect such an obvious flaw? Soon, Boyce obtained evidence of Leslie's involvement in planning the kidnapping. Staring at the documents in his hands, he remained silent for a long time, his cold eyes dark and unreadable, the air around him chillingly oppressive. Withdraw the case from the police station. Keep this quiet, destroy the evidence. I don't want a third person to know about this. To the public, just say Leslie saved Charlie. The assistant's face was full of disbelief. Mr. Boyce is going to shield the mastermind behind the kidnapping of his own son, but before he could figure it out, Boyce had already disappeared at the end of the hospital corridor. Boyce pushed open the ward door. She saw Leslie leaning against the hospital bed, her face pale as a delicate willow swaying in the wind. His brows furrowed involuntarily, his gaze taking on a scrutinizing edge. Leslie coughed weakly twice, deliberately revealing the wound on her arm, and with a concerned frown asked, "How is Charlie? Is he all right? He's still so young. This must have hurt him deeply. It's all Marion's fault, leaving just like that, not even caring for her child. What kind of irresponsible mother does that? No, I need to check on Charlie." As she spoke, she made a move to get out of bed. But as she passed by Boyce, he grabbed her arm. Boyce's voice was hoarse and restrained. "Marion is my wife. Whether she's a good mother or not isn't for others to judge." Leslie looked up at Boyce's cold, rigid profile and couldn't help but freeze for a moment. The face that had always been gentle with her now held not a trace of a smile, chillingly icy enough to startle. She unconsciously clenched her fists, her palms slick with a fine layer of sweat, a flash of guilt flickering in her eyes. Boyce, with all these years between us, how could I possibly be someone else? Her voice softened, making her appear even more vulnerable. I was too hasty and spoke out of turn, but this kidnapping was truly horrific. Even as an adult, I'm still shaken by it. Charlie, whom I've watched grow up, I can't help but ache for him. Boyce clenched his hand slightly at his side. His gaze towards Leslie was filled with icy suspicion. After a long silence, he finally spoke. If you found it so vile and terrifying, why did you arrange for Charlie's kidnapping and stage this self-directed drama? Leslie's pale face instantly stiffened. She blinked innocently, her face full of confusion. Boyce, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Boyce didn't explain, only a flicker of complexity and disappointment flashed in his gaze as he looked at her. I've already destroyed the evidence for you. From now on, don't appear in front of Charlie again. I'll send you abroad and arrange your future life. Don't come back. After speaking, he turned to leave, but Leslie rushed forward and wrapped her arms around his waist. Boyce, don't drive me away. If there's anything I've done wrong, I can change. We've been together all these years. I simply can't live without you. Boyce remained unmoved, gripping her wrist firmly to pull her away. Leslie grew desperate in an instant. Boyce, why are you doing this? I admit I was a bit impatient this time. But you and Marion are already divorced. I just want to marry the person I love. What's wrong with that? I don't care that Charlie is someone else's child. I'll definitely treat him well from now on. Boyce grabbed Leslie's wrist and shoved her away, his brows furrowed, his icy eyes filled with bewilderment. The person you love, shouldn't the one you love be my late elder brother? Leslie's face turned deathly pale in an instant, her lips trembling. What did you say? The one I've loved, has always been you. All these years, it's been you who stayed by my side, cared for me, cherished me. You remembered my birthday better than I did. And you were always there whenever I needed you. You treated me better than you treated your own wife. Don't you love me? A sharp clang rang out, an unnamed string in his mind suddenly snapped. Boyce released Leslie's hand and took a step back. I only took care of you to fulfill my elder brother's dying wish. I have no romantic feelings for you, nor will I ever marry you. The private jet for your departure will be ready today. You should leave as soon as possible. With that, Boyce left the ward without looking back. Meanwhile, I in faraway Finland remained completely unaware of all this. I had obtained a Finnish residence permit and enrolled in a local university, determined to fulfill my unfinished dream of becoming a diplomatic interpreter. Before the semester began, I used my hard-earned savings from over the years to purchase a small house. I heard that you can see the northern lights here in winter, and I'm really looking forward to it. Living alone has allowed me to better control my time. I've self-studied Finnish while also taking elective courses in German, Japanese, and Spanish. In my second year of university, I was accepted into a special international student training program. In at least 3 years, I can join the embassy in Finland and become a diplomat. Amidst the busyness of study and work, I rarely think about the past. My marriage with Boyce seems like a distant memory now. Here, I am not the Wilson family's Mrs. Wilson, not Boyce's wife, nor Charlie's mother. Here, I am simply myself, a complete, yet independent individual. In Finland, people aren't bound by the rigid sequence of studying, taking college entrance exams, attending university, then working and getting married. Here, after finishing high school, one can freely choose what they wish to do, work, marry, or do nothing at all. Everything is permitted. Their educational qualifications would remain valid until they decided to return to the university campus to resume their studies, so I had no difficulty communicating with my classmates. Many of them were around my age, some even older than me. During the 4 years of studying and living here, I experienced unprecedented ease and joy, and made many friends. In my 5th year in Finland, I successfully joined the Finnish embassy and became a diplomatic translator. Yet I had no idea that for 6 years, Boyce had never stopped searching for my whereabouts. The Wilson family's CEO office, the assistant beamed with joy. Mr. Boyce, we have news about Mrs. Wilson. She's at the Finnish embassy. Boyce suddenly stood up, his face unusually lit with a trace of joy. The assistant couldn't help but widen his eyes in astonishment. It had been 6 years since he last saw Mr. Boyce smile, ever since Mrs. Wilson divorced him. Not even closing billion-dollar deals had brought such a smile to his face. Boyce stood up to leave, but turned back just as he reached the door. I need her current detailed information immediately. Get it done now. His chest swelled with waves of joy. Boyce couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth. His gaze fell upon the family photo of 3 on the desk, his fingertips lingering tenderly over Marion's gentle face. I will definitely clear up the misunderstandings between us and bring you back to my side. I never took the initiative to learn about Boyce and Charlie's current lives. In my view, they should have gotten what they wished for: wives and a mother who satisfy them. I'm busy every day attending meetings from various countries and translating documents. The days pass by in a busy yet fulfilling manner, until one day, my supervisor came to me with a new energy project proposal. Marian, you're the most capable in our department. The Finnish Business Promotion Agency attaches great importance to this proposal, and we hope you can complete the translation as soon as possible. I looked at the inch-thick project proposal and smiled with genuine confidence. Don't worry, sir, I'll get it done. All these years, I've been constantly honing my professional skills precisely to accomplish what others can't, to keep pushing my limits. I was born to love challenges. But when I opened this project proposal, I discovered to my surprise that it was actually the Wilson Family Corporation's plan. Boyce, the familiar figure, reappeared in my mind. I shook my head and took a deep breath to comfort myself. Wilson Family Group's projects span the globe. It's only natural he'd want to launch a new project in Finland. It must just be a coincidence. I pulled several all-nighters in a row, carrying the translated project proposal. I knocked on the boss's office door. After briefly flipping through a few pages, the boss nodded repeatedly. No wonder even the visiting senior officials praised you as talented. Your work capability is truly exceptional. To complete such an arduous task in such a short time, and to do it both quickly and well, that's remarkable. Marian is truly a star player in our translation department. Having worked with the boss for 2 years, I know his temperament well. Whenever he starts praising someone, it's always a bad omen. But who doesn't enjoy hearing compliments? Most colleagues in the department ended up being coaxed onto his pirate ship after being showered with his compliments. Boss, stop beating around the bush. Just assign the task directly. If you praise me any more, my tail will be wagging up to the sky. The boss chuckled and tightened the lid of his teacup. The domestic Wilson family conglomerate is coming to Finland for an on-site inspection. The Finnish side is taking this very seriously. I've already signed you up for the diplomatic interpretation work. We can't just focus on work every day. We should also balance our lives. I remember you're still single, right? I heard the representative from the Wilson Families Group is young and promising, and also single. Take this opportunity to get to know each other better. Wilson family. It couldn't be Boyce, could it? I shuddered inwardly. It couldn't be such a coincidence, could it? Wilson Family Group representatives arrived in Finland. The leader took me along to greet them at the airport. Marian, the Finnish side has prepared a dinner banquet for the Wilson Family Group representatives. The occasion won't be too formal, so just relax during the interpretation and don't be too nervous. I'll introduce you to the representative from the Wilson Families Group in a moment. As soon as the words were spoken, I saw the leader waving towards someone behind me. Mr. Boyce. Over here. When the leader took my hand and led me to Boyce, I was still standing there dazed, unable to process what was happening. 6 years had passed, yet time seemed to have left no trace on him. He remained as aloof and taciturn as ever, until my superior nudged me forward, beaming as she introduced. Mr. Boyce, let me introduce Marian from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs Translation Department at the Finnish Embassy. She'll be your accompanying interpreter for this trip. Don't let her youthful beauty fool you. Marian here speaks 5 languages fluently. She's our finest diplomatic interpreter, and still single. Across from me, Boyce stared with fixed intensity, his gaze brimming with scrutiny, and something else I couldn't quite name. I extended my hand with a smile, polite yet distant. Mr. Boyce, a pleasure. He stared at me for several seconds with an inscrutable look in his eyes before finally raising his hand to shake mine. Encountering Boyce was unexpected to begin with. I just wanted to get this over with and withdraw my hand, but he held on tightly without letting go. After 2 attempts to pull away, I couldn't help but frown, my tone turning stern. Mr. Boyce, what do you mean by this? The leader beside us glanced at him and then at me, seemingly sensing the awkward tension, and quickly tried to smooth things over. Interpreter Lynn's beauty and unique charm always move people, it seems even Mr. Boyce is no exception. Boyce released his grip with a dark glint in his eyes, offering a rare, slight curl of his lips in response. Indeed, he didn't say anything more, but instead released my hand as I had wished. The banquet soon began. I didn't take him seriously. What did it matter if it was just a brief social interaction? After all, he certainly hadn't come specifically for me. I steadied my mind and sat beside Boyce. In Finland, approximately 93.4% of the population speaks Finnish as their native language. This agglutinative language features case inflections for verbs, nouns, and adjectives. As a synthetic language, grammatical relationships between words are primarily expressed through morphological changes in the words themselves. I calmly translated each sentence, conveying Boyce's words to the Finnish representative while simultaneously interpreting the representative's responses back to him. He crossed his long legs in an elegant and noble posture, tilting his ear slightly as he listened to me speak, nodding frequently. Finland has policy support in the clean energy sector, and companies possess strong technical capabilities. However, market entry requires compliance with local regulations. We can provide legal consultation and channel resources. At this point, I couldn't help but pause for a moment. In the 5-year marriage where Boyce and I wore each other down, it seemed he had never listened to me speak with such genuine attention. A bitter ache rose in my heart, not for him, but for myself, for the years when my soul was imprisoned without freedom within the shell of being called Mrs. Wilson. Fortunately, I've finally broken free now, Boyce's voice continued. I'd like to know if there are any special requirements regarding Finland's tax and labor laws. His voice was low and unhurried, and after each sentence, he would quietly look at me. The gaze was calm and focused, and I instinctively averted my eyes, proceeding with my work in a strictly professional manner, no different from my other assignments in the diplomatic interpretation field over the past 6 years. The negotiations at this evening's banquet proceeded smoothly. As we parted, I tightened my scarf against the Finnish snowstorm. Wearing lambskin gloves, I briefly shook hands with Boyce. Mr. Boyce, pleasure doing business with you, until we meet again. With that, I turned and walked away. My long boots crunched rhythmically through the snow with each step. Just as I opened the car door, a voice suddenly called from behind, "Marion." I stopped in my tracks but didn't turn around, quietly waiting for him to continue. After what felt like an eternity, the wind had chilled my fingertips to stiffness when his voice finally came again. "Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" I couldn't tell if it was my imagination, but his hoarse voice carried a trace of inexplicable grievance. My heart quivered, and I could only blame Finland's polar night for being too cold. "President Liu, I've completed all the translations needed for the banquet. As for the rest, I have nothing more to say." Yet Boyce seemed unwilling to let me leave so easily. His usually composed voice tinged with uncharacteristic urgency. "Marion, when you filed for divorce without a word, did you ever consider, if not me, how Charlie would feel? 6 years have passed. Charlie is 9 years old now. Don't you miss him at all?" I turned around and smiled without changing my expression. What's there to miss about a child who disregards his mother's sacrifices? Besides, he should be quite happy to have a new mother now, shouldn't he? The snow fell upon Boyce's shoulders, his tall and slender figure appearing even more solitary against the black overcoat. He frowned slightly, his thin lips pressed together, his gaze carrying a hint of confusion as he looked at me. Then he relented with a sigh, stepping through the snow toward me, his voice softening uncharacteristically. "Charlie, he hasn't been ignoring your efforts. He's just too young to know how to love someone. He won't have any so-called new mother. You will always be his mother, that's beyond doubt. Too young to know how to love someone." My gaze fell upon Boyce's face, tracing along his handsome features downward until it lingered on his lightly pursed thin lips. I couldn't help but find it somewhat amusing. Whether one knows how to love has nothing to do with age. Boyce and Charlie could remember Leslie's birthday, and took the effort to personally carve a peace pendant for her. How can this father and son not know how to love? They just don't know how to love me. Leaning leisurely against the car as I studied him, I couldn't help wondering if I were still his Mrs. Wilson. Would he be standing before me like this today, speaking to me so calmly and at such length? I shook my head and laughed at myself. Boyce frowned in confusion. "What are you laughing at?" I didn't mind his gaze at all, my smile wild and unrestrained, not without mockery. "Don't you laugh when you hear something funny, Boyce? Whether we're divorced or not, it doesn't seem like we're on catching up terms. You know very little about me, and I have no interest in reminiscing about any past that involves you." After speaking, I ignored his hesitant expression, got straight into the car, and slammed the accelerator. Returning home, I washed up and collapsed into bed. Perhaps it was because I saw Boyce today that scenes from the past resurfaced in my mind. For 5 years of marriage, I had diligently played the roles of a good wife and mother, yet never truly been myself. For 6 years living and studying alone abroad, I rarely ever thought about the past. Most of the time, I was making up for what I'd missed, compensating myself for the campus life I'd never experienced. For the youthful days that had passed me by, I'd long forgotten I was ever someone's wife, someone's mother. But now, Boyce has forced me to remember these deliberately ignored memories. I tightened my grip on the blanket, turning over between the chill and the warmth. A deep exhaustion washed over me, and I soon fell asleep. Late at night, the neighbor's hunting dog erupted into frenzied barks. I was startled awake. In my dreams, Boyce's cold eyes and brows along with Charlie's disdainful wariness faded before my eyes. I took several deep breaths to clear my head, put on my clothes, and went to the window to check the situation. There stood Boyce, still in that black overcoat. Right outside my door. I had no idea how he found my address. I just found it somewhat amusing. Finland's polar night, with average temperatures ranging from -20 to -30 degrees Celsius. With his current attire, if he were to stand outside all night, I have no doubt I'd find a human-shaped ice sculpture by my doorstep come morning. Though I had no idea what he wanted, I still opened the door and invited my ex-husband inside. After all, I certainly didn't want him dying at my doorstep and causing me trouble. By the warm fireplace, I politely handed Boyce a cup of coffee. His knuckles were red from the cold, his whole body trembling uncontrollably as he cradled the warm cup in both hands. Only after a long moment did he exhale and offer me a faint smile. "Thank you." My gaze flickered slightly. He rarely smiled at me. Most of the time, he remained cold, distant, and expressionless. I couldn't help but frown, my tone turning cold. "Boyce, what exactly are you trying to do?" Boyce lowered his eyes. The frost crystals clinging to his eyelashes slowly melted, turning into glistening droplets that hung on his lashes. It made his whole person appear gentle and fragile. His eyelashes trembled slightly, shedding a single tear. Perhaps due to the cold weather, his voice carried a faint tremor as he spoke. "I want to know, why did we get divorced?" I furrowed my brows, staring intently at his face. He met my gaze with equal composure, his eyes filled with genuine confusion and bewilderment, yet my heart was a tumult of mixed emotions. So all that I had endured those 5 years had truly been completely disregarded. I exhaled deeply, suddenly regretting having let him in. I should just turn off the lights and go to sleep, let him freeze to death outside. His Adam's apple bobbed repeatedly, as if hesitating for a long time before uttering 2 unfamiliar words. "Marion, Marion." How ridiculous. The first time he ever seriously called me by name was actually 6 years after our divorce. I tightened the blanket around me, sinking into the armchair, and couldn't help but cast a somewhat sarcastic glance at Boyce. "Boyce, have you ever considered that perhaps the very reason you don't know why we divorced is exactly why we got divorced?" Boyce stiffened for a moment, his eyes revealing an uncharacteristic confusion. He was always like this: privileged upbringing, successful career, sharp intellect allowing him to handle everything with effortless ease, yet equally indifferent to everything around him, as if, no matter how things unfolded, they would never stray from the path he had drawn. Perhaps, I was one of the few exceptions. For some reason, my eyes grew inexplicably warm, but I quickly adjusted my posture, suppressing that surge of bitterness in my heart. "Boyce, I told you many times before the divorce," I said. "Since both you and Charlie love Leslie so much, then I agree to the divorce, and I'll also give up custody of Charlie and leave with nothing. Our marital assets will be transferred to Charlie's name. Consider it as child support from this unlikable mother." I've told you all these words verbatim. As I said this, I crossed my legs and leaned toward Boyce. "But Boyce, do you remember any of it?" Boyce clenched the cup in his hands unconsciously, his brows furrowing as if straining to recall something, yet the confusion in his eyes betrayed him. He couldn't remember anything. I knew this outcome well, for he had never truly listened to Marion when she spoke as his wife. Back then, Marion was to him a nominal partner, a nanny within the family, Leslie's babysitter. A stifling gloom lodged in my chest. For some reason, a wicked thought arose in me. I didn't want Boyce to have it so easy, but then it occurred to me that no matter what I did, it probably wouldn't hurt him. After all, he never cared. This time, my stubbornness might simply be because my derailment shattered his authority, and he loves controlling everything far too much. Boyce hung his head, his voice filled with remorseful dejection. "I'm sorry. I truly don't remember you saying those things. Maybe I was busy at the time. But is this really why you're divorcing me? I just can't accept this as a reason." I took a sip of coffee, prepared for a prolonged battle with him in this winter where day and night seemed indistinguishable. I raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Oh, then what about the perfume scent on your clothes every night when you come home? Is this reason enough for me to divorce you?" Boyce froze for a moment, as if he had finally caught the contradiction in my words, yet shook his head as though finding it unbelievable. "Leslie, are you divorcing me because of her?" Boyce's voice grew even more astonished. As if divorcing because of Leslie was even more absurd than divorcing because he never listened to me, I just sipped my coffee and nodded indifferently. Yeah, every day you come home reeking of Leslie's perfume, and Charlie won't stop talking about wanting Leslie to be his new mom. Should I keep shamelessly clinging to this Mrs. Wilson title that I never even wanted in the first place? Boyce's face turned uncharacteristically pale for a moment. So, you suspect I'm having an affair? I wagged a finger in front of his face. Not suspicion, when you've been bringing Leslie to every event, letting people introduce her as Mrs. Wilson without any hesitation. When your friends mocked me and joked about how you and Leslie were a better match. When you signed the divorce papers without even looking, just so you could hurry off to be with Leslie. Whether you cheated or not doesn't even matter anymore. Divorcing you was simply my way of refusing to be trapped in the cage of Mrs. Wilson. No one likes living behind a mask, bound by rules until all their edges are worn away. Boyce. Being that hollow figurehead puppet is something I'm unwilling to do myself either. Boyce's eyelashes trembled as he remained silent for a long time. Perhaps he didn't expect me to say these things, or perhaps he simply didn't care about my true feelings. He just wanted to find an opportunity to review his failures and learn from them. But in my opinion, these are completely unnecessary, because he loves Leslie, remembers her birthday to carefully prepare gifts and surprises, rushes to see her at the first opportunity, listens attentively to what she says, and knows her preferences inside out. He loves Leslie, so this failure of mine won't repeat itself in his future married life. I raised my hand to check the time, 4:30 a.m., if we hadn't divorced. In half an hour I'd be getting up to prepare breakfast for Boyce and his son. Overcome by fatigue, I began seeing my guest out. Mr. Boyce, you must have learned everything you wanted to know. Please leave early. I need to rest. Before I could finish, I heard a voice exceptionally clear and solemn say, I'm sorry. I was momentarily stunned. The words stuck in my throat left unfinished. Boyce stared at me unblinkingly and slowly repeated, I'm sorry. I didn't realize these overlooked details had caused you so much distress. It's my fault, and I apologize to you. I couldn't help finding it somewhat amusing, to make the aloof, arrogant Boyce apologize. I suppose I must be the one and only. Yet immediately afterward, a hollow sense of desolation filled my chest. I actually felt somewhat wronged. Turns out, when I laid bare the most mundane aspects of my 5-year marriage before him, even he could see how I'd been wronged. I quietly rubbed my stiff chest, suddenly feeling that pent-up resentment dissipate considerably. Perhaps I could make peace with the past after all. But there's one point where I disagree with you. Boyce suddenly spoke up, interrupting my train of thought. I glanced at him as he pressed his lips together and continued, I didn't cheat. I don't have feelings for Leslie. A flicker of unmistakable guilt and longing flashed through his eyes as he said with difficulty, I take care of her and fulfill her every request to honor my late brother's dying wish. The reason I don't correct others when they call her Mrs. Wilson is because I think if my brother were still alive, she would rightfully be Mrs. Wilson. I waved my hand. It doesn't matter anymore. He seemed stung by my indifferent attitude, a flash of hurt passing through his eyes. He emphasized, no, this matters very much. During these 6 years you've been gone. Both Charlie and I have missed you terribly. I want to dissolve the resentment in your heart and bring you back to our family. For a fleeting moment, I truly thought Boyce was joking. I waited 10 long years for my freedom, and now he wants me to return to the family. Trembling laughter burst from my chest. I simply couldn't contain my hysterical mirth. Boyce's face flashed with bewilderment. As if he genuinely didn't understand what I was laughing about, or perhaps he'd never seen this authentic version of me before. I raised my hand to wipe the tears spilling from the corners of my eyes, clutching my cramping stomach as I took several deep breaths to barely regain composure. Boyce, are you joking? After all the struggle to divorce you, now that I finally have my own career, how could I possibly return to domestic life? Besides, what would I go back for? To be a free nanny? Or to run around serving you like some old housemaid, delivering that ridiculous seafood porridge to your office every day? You feel guilty about your brother and want to fulfill his last wish by taking good care of Leslie, but there's no need to drag me into it, is there? After all, I owe nothing to your brother, nothing to Leslie, and least of all to you. Boyce wanted to say more, but I'd already reached the door and yanked it open. The icy wind swept in with swirling snow, causing the temperature inside to plummet. My fingers clenched the doorknob as my words came out laced with frost. Get out, don't make me say it again. Boyce finally left, but exhaustion weighed me down and sleep wouldn't come. I barely managed to drag myself to work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Translation Department after enduring the night, but as soon as I arrived at the office, Devastating news awaited me. My supervisor stood before me and spoke earnestly. Marion, though you haven't worked here long, your attitude is exemplary and your skills are solid. This domestic Wilson family conglomerate is launching a new energy project in Finland, which will greatly benefit relations between our two countries. The leaders of relevant departments in Finland want to take this opportunity to accompany Mr. Boyce on an inspection tour in China, and they're currently short of an accompanying interpreter. I've already submitted the request to higher authorities. This time, you'll represent our Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the return trip. It's been 6 years since you left. Take this chance to reunite with your family. I listened with a smile on my face, but my heart was already galloping like 10,000 horses. It's all Boyce's fault. The moment he arrived, everything became so complicated. I forced a smile as I stood up. Rest assured, leader, the task will be completed. That afternoon, I boarded the special flight back home with Boyce and the inspection delegation from relevant Finnish departments. I don't know who arranged the seating, but there was only an armrest between Boyce and me. Exhausted, I pinched the bridge of my nose and turned my head away to avoid looking at him. Though neither of us had slept all night, Boyce showed no signs of fatigue on his face. Before long, a soft, thick blanket was draped over me. Boyce moved with careful deliberation, as if afraid of waking me, yet I wasn't asleep, nor did I wish to glance his way. To me, he was someone I had once genuinely liked and admired. At the same time, it was also the shackles that bound me. The relationship between him and me was completely severed the moment we signed the divorce agreement. I just didn't expect to see my son, now connected only by blood, the moment I got off the plane. Charlie was holding hands with Boyce's mom in the waiting area. At 9 years old this year, he was no longer the fair and chubby little milk bun he once was. He had grown much taller, with a pair of reddened eyes. The moment he saw me, he shouted, "Mommy!" The leaders of the inspection team exchanged puzzled glances, and someone quietly asked what was going on. With a composed smile, I calmly replied, "This little one must have lost his mother." Beside him, Boyce instantly darkened his expression. So, he could understand Finnish after all. Charlie wanted to approach, but was held back by Boyce's mom. The dignified and proper elderly woman didn't let him continue crying, but instead led him away. "I told you, Boyce's mom coming here couldn't possibly be out of kindness to reunite mother and son. Perhaps she wants to use Charlie to force me into doing something. But now, I have no reason to keep playing the obedient one." Accompanying the Finnish delegation on their tour of Wilson's house these past few days went smoothly enough. After all, when it comes to work, Boyce never makes mistakes. As soon as the inspection work concluded, he came looking for me. "Marion, the delegation's work is finished. Would you like to come home with me to see Charlie? He misses you." Misses me. My mind couldn't help but recall all the disdain and rejection from that miniature version of Boyce. I shook my head. No. He never liked me in the first place. Now that I've been gone for 6 years, he must hate me even more. He likes Leslie as his mother. "You should fulfill your brother's dying wish. Why don't you marry Leslie sooner? That way, everyone's happy, and your future wife won't have to help you take care of your sister-in-law." Boyce pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed wearily. "Marion, must we speak like this?" I glanced at him coolly and said frankly, "Don't like it. We needn't speak at all." With that, I gathered my things and went straight back to the hotel where I was staying. As for Clifford's house, there was simply no need to return. Hearing that my best friend was also back in the country, I was overjoyed and immediately arranged to meet her. The moment we saw each other, I noticed a sparkle light up in her eyes. She took my hands and spun me around, looking me over several times. Finally, she hugged me tightly and sighed. "This is wonderful. This is how you were always meant to be. After 6 years apart, seeing you like this now truly makes me happy for you. When girlfriends get together, there's always endless topics to chat about. Once the conversation starts flowing, hours fly by in the blink of an eye." Just as we were getting into the swing of things, my phone suddenly rang without warning, an unfamiliar domestic number. Frowning, I hesitated for a moment before finally answering. A tentative female voice came through from the other end. "Hello, is this Charlie's mother? I'm his homeroom teacher. Charlie got into a fight with another student at school. I just called his father, and he told me to contact you." My best friend, who had been abruptly cut off mid-sentence, snatched my phone angrily. "No, you've got the wrong number." The call ended. "This Boyce guy is insane. You're already divorced, you didn't even want custody. And now you've only been back in the country for a few days. He's really just stirring up trouble for no reason." Before the words had even left my mouth, the phone rang again. I answered once more, the teacher on the other end sounding both anxious and impatient. "Charlie's mom, We really need you to come as soon as possible. Adult matters shouldn't affect a child's mental and physical development, especially since Charlie has hit a classmate so hard they're bleeding. The other parent is demanding you take their child to the hospital immediately. Left with no choice, my best friend and I rushed to the school. In the teacher's office, several children stood with dust-streaked faces, but while all the other children had parents accompanying them, only Charlie stood alone with no one behind him. The injured classmate's parent hugged their child while pointing at Charlie and showering him with scathing accusations. How could you hit someone so viciously at such a young age? Didn't your mother teach you not to hit people? Before the parent could finish speaking, the children nearby burst into giggles with cheeky grins. Charlie has no mom. Charlie's mom abandoned him. Charlie is a motherless kid. Charlie immediately flushed with rage, charging forward like a wolf cub ready to brawl again. It was clear that the Wilsons had enrolled him in systematic combat training. But with the other child's parent shielding them, he gained no advantage. As he hit the ground, he spotted me at the doorway, his eyes reddening instantly. I could see his tears welling up, yet he stubbornly bit his lower lip and obstinately turned his head as he struggled to his feet. I ignored Charlie's sulkiness. I walked in, swept my gaze across the crowd, and gave a brief self-introduction. I am Charlie's biological mother. I'm divorced from his father and don't have custody. You can discuss the system's compensation with his father, Boyce. As the words fell, Charlie looked up in disbelief. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him quickly lower his head to wipe his eyes, moving so fast as if afraid I'd notice. This child, wasn't he always urging me to divorce his father when he was little? So where are these tears coming from now? At the mention of Boyce, the parents exchanged glances, their aggressive demeanor noticeably deflating. Boyce's name perennially dominates the front pages of financial sections. There are probably few who don't recognize him. Such a minor issue could easily be resolved without his personal involvement, yet he deliberately throws it to me, thinking this might awaken my maternal instincts. Has he forgotten that love requires reciprocity? Not even all parents love their children. I take a deep breath, dispelling the scene in my mind of Mr. Clifford dragging me into the Women's Virtue Academy. Charlie's mom, even though you're divorced from Mr. Boyce, you still need to give us an explanation for Charlie's violent behavior, right? I nod, my gaze lightly resting on Charlie. Why were you fighting? Charlie stubbornly refused to speak, his neck stiff with defiance. I no longer had the patience to coax him like I did when he was little. If you don't want to talk, we'll wait until your father gets here. I have things to do, I don't have time to waste on this. Before the words had even finished, Charlie lashed out like an enraged little beast, his eyes red as he shouted at me. They said I don't have a mom. Are you happy now? Why didn't Dad marry Leslie? She would never ignore me like you do. I hate you. I hate you. I waited for him to finish yelling, then raised an eyebrow. Back when your dad and I were still married, if you wanted Leslie to be your mom, I could at least understand you yelling at me. But now that your dad and I are divorced, if you want someone else to be your mom, go find her yourself. The parents exchanged glances, their sighs audible in the air. A child so young already scheming to make his parents divorce. No wonder his mother abandoned him. That Leslie looks familiar. I've often seen her attending major events with Mr. Boyce, putting on such airs. I thought she was Mrs. Wilson, but turns out she's the mistress. Charlie is at that rebellious age. How could he possibly tolerate such words? He made as if to storm out, but he had only run a few steps before retreating. Boyce strode over swiftly with his assistant and bodyguards, his face expressionless yet exuding an overwhelming presence. His arrival instantly made the entire office feel more cramped. His piercing gaze swept across the crowd as he spoke coldly. What's going on here? Everyone looked at each other, but no one spoke. Charlie seemed quite afraid of him too, keeping his head down and not daring to make a sound. I glanced at him indifferently. Since you're here now, as the child's guardian, you should handle this matter. I'll take my leave. Marion, Mom. I left the two summons behind me and strode out of the office. My best friend was still waiting in the car. That little ingrate, you shouldn't have bothered with him. You have no idea. After you left, he threw tantrums, demanding that Leslie become his new mom. Boyce slapped him once, and then he threatened to run away, almost got kidnapped too. I heard it was Leslie who risked her life to bring him back. Guess you could say they were both all in for each other. I headed straight to the bar with my best friend, quickly putting the little incident at school behind me. I never expected that when we stumbled out of the bar tipsy, we'd run right into Boyce and his son. He was holding Charlie's hand. Having waited outside for who knows how long, the moment he saw me, his eyes flickered, but all he said was, "Marion, we need to talk." Boyce is the kind of person who never gives up until he achieves his goal. I didn't want to waste time arguing with him, so I simply asked my best friend to call a designated driver and go back first. I followed Boyce and his son into the car. Charlie sat in the passenger seat, while I sat in the back with Boyce. The atmosphere in the car was unusually tense. I could almost hear the driver swallowing nervously. The car finally stopped in front of a restaurant. A waiter politely came to open the door, but Boyce beat him to it. I ignored the hand he offered and stepped out of the car directly. Boyce slowly retracted his outstretched fingers one by one, finally clenching them together, appearing somewhat forlorn. The restaurant is the same one I booked for my birthday 6 years ago. 6 years ago. I took the initiative to ask Boyce to celebrate my birthday with me, but he never replied. He even reserved the entire place for Leslie, leaving me without a meal. 6 years later, he actually took the initiative to reserve the entire place for me. It's a pity I no longer need this now. I sat in the chair and got straight to the point. If you have something to say, just say it directly. But I have 2 conditions: no transferring custody, and no remarrying. In other words, I want neither of them, neither father nor son. Boyce frowned, hesitating as if on the verge of speaking. Charlie stared at me with bloodshot eyes that seemed on the brink of tears. But now, I no longer stay up all night comforting and soothing him just because he cries endlessly. Finally, it was Boyce who spoke first. Marion, if you didn't like me, why did you marry me in the first place? I always thought we were suitable, that you were the most qualified Mrs. Wilson. A trace of barely perceptible pain flashed in his eyes, yet I found myself sinking into that memory that chilled me to the bone. I closed my eyes briefly, trying to dispel those terrifying images from my mind, but it's no use. I've always had to admit that even though I've gained my freedom, the past still follows me like a shadow. I let out a sigh and took a sip of water. If you were sent to a women's virtue academy, subjected to daily abuse, locked in dark rooms, and physically punished, with the only way out being to mold yourself into the perfect wealthy wife, you'd probably agree too, wouldn't you? Boyce stared at me blankly, as if he didn't understand a word I was saying. I couldn't help but scoff. You didn't actually think someone who's been top of their class since childhood would dislike studying, did you? From the age of 16, your family selected me to be groomed as Mrs. Wilson, at 18. When I rebelled against this arrangement with a teenage romance, I was immediately sent to a women's virtue academy. I wasn't released until our wedding date arrived. That memory is something I still refuse to recall, so I have no interest in being your Mrs. Wilson, not before, and not now. It's not that I never imagined marital bliss and familial harmony, but you shattered those hopes with your own hands, making me realize that the Wilson household is nothing but a cage. A cage that will utterly trap and suffocate me unless I break free. Now I have a new life, and the best thing you can do is not disturb me. As for this shop, I already found it utterly disgusting that night 6 years ago. With that, I didn't give the father and son any chance to respond. I picked up my bag and walked straight out. Just as I reached the doorway, a choked sob came from behind me. I'm sorry, I didn't know you'd been through all this. But I still have to ask, since you wanted a loving married life, doesn't that prove you once liked me, loved me? If that's true, is there any chance we could start over? Even if, just a little. I didn't turn around, I didn't answer. I just never expected that my long-lost father would show up at my door the very next afternoon. He wore an ingratiating, apologetic smile. Daughter, where have you been all these years? Why haven't you called home even once? Looking at the new streaks of white at his temples, I couldn't describe the complicated feelings in my heart. The once powerful man who could control me at will had now lowered his head before me, as if all that had once tormented me wasn't invincible after all. My thoughts returned to the present, and I said indifferently to the man before me, Mr. Lin, if you have something to say, speak plainly. There's no need to beat around the bush. He seemed taken aback by my defiant tone. His smile stiffening for a moment as if he could barely maintain it. A shadow flickered in his eyes before he composed his expression once more. Dad didn't come for anything important this time. I was just thinking, since you haven't been home for so many years, could you come back for a meal? During your absence, Mr. Boyce has been very attentive to our family. I can tell he still has feelings for you. Last time you got divorced without even discussing it with the family. Now that you're back, why don't our 2 families talk again? After all, haven't you been destined to marry Mr. Boyce since you were 16? I caught the implication in his words. My smile grew colder. Are you suggesting that Boyce and I could remarry, Mr. Clifford nodded repeatedly, his shrewd yet clouded eyes gleaming with calculation once more. I couldn't help but sneer. What did the Wilson family promise you this time? Resources, partnerships, projects. If the Clifford family can only survive by selling off their daughters, you might as well declare bankruptcy now. My words were merciless, and Mr. Clifford could no longer maintain his smile. After being away for a few years, you think you've grown wings, haven't you? Is that any way to speak to your father? If it weren't for some gossip monger telling Boyce that I sent you to a women's virtue school, he wouldn't have suddenly withdrawn his investment from our family, in just one night. Half of our company's market value evaporated. Today, no matter what, you must come with me to see him. As he spoke, he reached out to grab my arm. I shook him off directly. The Clifford family, this festering lump of excess flesh, was long overdue for removal. An hour later, I saw Boyce again in the drawing room of the Clifford family mansion. Charlie sat beside him, looking at Mr. Clifford with the same indifference he'd once shown me. I ignored them and went straight to find a seat. Boyce hesitated for a moment before looking at me and saying, "Marion, I came today." I glanced at him and cut him off. "You don't need to tell me why you're here. The best thing for me is if you don't show up at all." Boyce's eyes dimmed instantly. It took a long while before he finally let out a sigh. "I didn't mean to pressure you. His words still didn't get a chance to be finished. This time, the one interrupting him was Mr. Clifford. Mr. Clifford smiled as he brought out a fine bottle of wine and placed it on the table, warmly inviting Boyce and his son. Come, try this fine wine I've been saving. Marion has been willful since childhood, but I've already scolded her. She's come back this time precisely to live properly with Mr. Boyce. How about we pick an auspicious date later and hold another wedding ceremony?" He bowed obsequiously as he poured wine for Boyce. Speaking with such conviction you'd think he was the supreme ruler of this patriarchal society. Perhaps in his eyes, I was never his daughter to begin with, but rather an accessory, a tool to be exchanged for benefits. In short, she would never be treated as an independent person under any circumstances. Yet Boyce, who held a higher position than him, remained silent, prompting him to cautiously probe again. "Mr. Boyce, I know this girl had the audacity to divorce you 6 years ago. And you must still hold resentment. If you don't want a grand wedding for the remarriage, that's fine, just take her back as she is." Finally, he added, "What do you think?" But the response didn't come from Boyce, but from the suddenly pushed open door of the Clifford residence. Not good. What era is this to still enforce arranged marriages, and poaching talent from my foreign ministry at that? The Blue Shield bodyguards pushed open the door and surged in. Following closely behind was an elderly man in an administrative jacket, his face stern and unyielding. Though advanced in years with graying hair, his commanding presence was undeniable, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. The Clifford family, though merely merchants, understood exactly what kind of people Blue Shield bodyguards protected. Instantly, the atmosphere throughout the Clifford residence turned icy and solemn. Mr. Clifford hurried forward to ingratiate himself. "Esteemed leader, what brings you to our humble abode? Your presence truly illuminates this modest courtyard." The old man snorted coldly, his piercing gaze like shards of frost as he glared at him. The 1950 marriage law abolished arranged marriages, and the 1992 law on the protection of women's rights and interests explicitly prohibited domestic violence. But today you forcibly brought our comrade from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here and even presumed to arrange his marriage without consent. Are you trying to turn back the wheel of history? In just 2 sentences, Mr. Clifford was left standing frozen in place. Not only Mr. Clifford, but everyone present who knew me, including that son who had always treated me like a nanny, stared dumbfounded at the old man. What comrade from the foreign ministry? This is a family dinner. How could there be anyone from the foreign ministry? You must be joking. The senior leader ignored him, only giving me a kindly smile. "Marion, come here." Seeing the old man's gaze fixed on me, Mr. Clifford's expression grew even more puzzled, with even a hint of disdain showing on his face. "Sir, you must have mistaken someone else for me. My daughter never even attended university. How could she possibly work for the foreign ministry? She's just a housewife. A few years ago, she caused a scene during her divorce and ran away from home. You really shouldn't." Before he could finish, the Blue Shield bodyguards on either side stepped forward to restrain him. Amidst the stunned gazes of the crowd, I rose and approached the elderly leader with an apologetic tone. "Old chief, I'm truly sorry you had to make this trip because of my family matters. Mr. Clifford, before taking me away, I sent a WeChat message to my best friend who's also a diplomat. This elderly gentleman was a senior leader from our country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I had briefly met him when I first joined the ministry." The old man waved his hand dismissively. "Now that's not entirely fair. You're an outstanding comrade at the Foreign Ministry, fluent in 5 languages at such a young age with such strong professional capabilities. If anyone tries to make you a housewife, I'll be the first to object. In the old days they said women hold up half the sky, but now we're in a new era where us female comrades have even greater potential. How can we let marriage tie us down? The organization fully supports love marriages, but arranged marriages are absolutely unacceptable. Marion, you don't mind that I'm cutting your family leave short, do you? I shook my head with a smile and replied, of course not, I can't wait to get back to work. The old man nodded. A white-plated Hongqi sedan drove straight through the gates of the Clifford residence. Several police cars followed closely behind. After helping my former superior into the back seat of the Hongqi and closing the door, I saw officers emerging from the police cars flashing their badges at Mr. Clifford. According to the investigation, the Women's Virtue School where you previously sent Marion has been involved in illegal activities including imprisonment, abuse, and psychological control. Please come with us for questioning, Mr. Clifford proclaimed his innocence loudly, but no one paid him any attention. The family banquet ended in discord. Just as I was about to leave with my former superior, a choked sob suddenly came from behind me. Mom, her hand gripping the car door tightened unconsciously. The senior official turned to me and nodded. Being a diplomat isn't like other jobs. Stationed abroad for years, you'll have few chances to see your family. Some matters should be dealt with sooner rather than later. Having said this, the senior official left first. I turned to look at Boyce and his son. Charlie clutched his father's hand tightly, his eyes brimming with tears as he looked at me. He stubbornly tilted his head back with a sob, seemingly struggling to hold back his tears. Don't you really want to be my mom anymore? Do you really not want me? Charlie bit his lip as if the words were too painful to speak. These past few years, both Dad and I have missed you terribly. I often see him staring at your photo in his study. The things I said before were childish and thoughtless. Could you possibly forgive me? Mom, could you love me one more time? Looking at him, I suddenly felt a pang of sadness. After all, he was the child I carried for 10 months and nearly died giving birth to. It's not that I didn't love him at all or didn't care for him, that would have been impossible. But how could I allow the blade that would stab me to spring from between my own thighs? In the isolated Wilson household, even my own flesh and blood, carried for 10 months in my womb, stood against me without hesitation. Now I can let go, but I cannot forgive on behalf of my past self. I gazed at him with quiet gentleness. Slowly, I began to speak. The time we spent together was brief. During those few 3 years, you spent a year and a half without full awareness of this world. Babbling in swaddling clothes, day after day, I held you in my arms, tirelessly teaching you to speak, though you likely remember little of it. Later, when you gained a rudimentary understanding of the world, you began to find me lacking, more than having me as your mother. You wished it were someone else you called mom, even if you were just a clueless child. My heartbreak in that moment was real. For the next 6 years, I was absent from your growth and never concerned myself with your education. By all rights, I have no standing to criticize or teach you anything. But today, I still want to impart one lesson to you, perhaps the last thing I'll ever be able to pass on to you in this lifetime. That is, people must take responsibility for the words they've spoken and the deeds they've done. Even if you're just a child, being a child isn't an excuse worth forgiving. As the words fell, a heart-wrenching scream came from behind. Mom, I know I was wrong. Don't go, please don't go. My steps faltered slightly, but in the end, I didn't stop. Call me cold-blooded or irresponsible. No matter what others say, I've already given Charlie the very best of everything. By staying with Boyce, he'll receive the finest education, no shortage of care and love, and in the future he'll inherit the entire Wilson family. The Rome that others can only dream of will merely be his starting point. What he possesses far exceeds anything he could imagine. Losing a mother might have an irreparable impact on his growth, but if he were to gain a mother, I would lose my entire life. If he were a child who truly loved me, I would willingly sacrifice for him, but he is not. What a pity. The first half of my life was a failure, whether in marriage or motherhood, whether as a wife or a mother, but fortunately, I have now successfully become my own person. Someone in this world must love me. If there's no one else, then it shall be me. Thinking this, a light smile played at the corners of my mouth as I quickened my pace leaving Clifford's house. On the day I returned to Finland, Boyce came to see me off at the airport. He didn't ask me again whether we could remarry or if there was any chance left. He just looked at me quietly, and after a long while, he proposed an utterly impossible hypothetical. He said, "Marion, if we could start over, I would cherish you and love you properly, not like now, regretting only after losing you. I always thought you'd stay by my side forever. I just never realized that nothing I did ever made you feel happy. Marion, I'm truly sorry. I didn't respond to him. Just looked up at the departure board. Last time you were the one who saw me off too, except we didn't get to say a proper goodbye then. Boyce, let's make this farewell count this time. The word goodbye seemed to sting Boyce's nerves. His brow twitched, and his eyes revealed a suffocating sorrow. Could we? His lips trembled as he hesitated for a long time without completing a single sentence. I stood before him, spreading my arms open. Don't be so sentimental, after all. We've lived together for a while. I suppose I count as an old friend who knows you well. Let's have a hug. Before the words fully left my mouth, I was abruptly pulled into a warm embrace that carried the scent of sandalwood, enveloped in Boyce's distinctive fragrance. He held me so tight, his arms constantly tightening as if trying to press me into his very bones and blood. In our marriage, we rarely had moments of such intimacy. Simple embraces, holding hands, sitting down to talk peacefully, these were all things I once longed for but could never obtain, yet when I no longer wanted them, they came clamoring to me one after another. I sighed and reached out to gently pat Boyce's back. His shoulders trembled violently, making it hard for me to catch my breath too. When I spoke, my voice cracked. Charlie, please take good care of him from now on. If you meet someone suitable, start a new family. Just remember to treat her well. Boyce held me tighter, shaking his head as a drop of icy liquid fell onto my neck. I can't help but sigh. Fate truly has a way of playing tricks on people sometimes. I always thought Boyce had no feelings for me, which was why he left so decisively and effortlessly. I believed my departure would be the optimal solution to everyone's predicament. I could gain freedom, Boyce could find love, Charlie could have the mother he adored, Leslie could finally have her wish fulfilled, but in the end, it was all just missed chances. Perhaps, this relationship was also a regret for Boyce. He whispered in my ear, his voice unbearably hoarse, I'm so sorry, I never held you properly before, not like this. For a moment, warmth welled up in my eyes, yet I smiled with relief. I released him. It doesn't matter anymore. Boyce, we both need to move forward, no looking back. He grasped my hand, his gaze fixed on me with unusual solemnity. I won't take another wife. Charlie will only ever have one mother. I know the past has hurt you deeply, and you're unwilling to forgive us. But both Charlie and I will wait for you. If one day you want to see us, just tell me. No matter where I am, I'll bring Charlie to you immediately. Marion, my door will always be open for you. Before the words had fully faded, a small figure came rushing out from behind an airport pillar. Charlie said with reddened eyes and a choked voice, Mom, I know I was wrong. I'll wait for you. I'll wait until you're ready to be my mom again. I crouched down and gently wiped the tears from his face. Just as I'd done countless times to comfort him when he was little. I'm sorry, Charlie. I can't stay by your side to fulfill my responsibilities as a mother anymore, but I'll always be your mom, that's beyond doubt, and no one can change that. But before being a mother, I had to first become my own person. The airport announcement echoed, passengers of Finnair flight AY52 to Helsinki, please proceed to gate B12 for boarding. I stood up and gave Charlie one last pat on the head. Looking up at Boyce, I said, take the child and go home. With that, I picked up the small suitcase beside me and turned away without hesitation. As the plane soared above the clouds, the entire city transformed into a grid of twinkling lights below, and it finally dawned on me I had left once again. Perhaps the ties of blood would grant us countless chances to meet again, but my choice would remain unchanged. The road ahead is still long, but I must always start by being true to myself. The end.